What tape? New tape. Okay. We're ready, rolling, buddy. Good. This is exciting stuff. Don't yawn.
Really
Okay.
is. Sorry, I'm boring you guys.
Francisco, we were talking about political content in painting. How would you separate? I mean, is it a fair question to say what is a political artist versus an artist?
Well, I wouldn't separate a political artist and an artist. I think they're both artists to start with, okay? So I wouldn't separate them in that. I think there are artists that focus on political work, and they are very good artists. I mean, I think you have to go back to what is political art in the first place. I think Goya did political art. I think Picasso did political art. Well, there are some other people who maybe do more of that type of subject matter than, say, Picasso, which I think the only piece that Picasso could be considered overtly political is Guernica. So I think that you have to think of, well, yeah, Picasso was a political artist because he did a political painting. But where does somebody like Leon Golub fits, who is overtly political, and most of his, at least his work from the last 10 years or so, is overtly political. And I think that his focus is to go to to expose, in a way, the general audience to his own political stance. But his work is primarily art. I mean, his interest is in aesthetics. His interest is in having art be it. And his politics comes second, even though you as a viewer will see the work and be blown away by the politics. But if those politics that he portrays there were not done as exceptional as somebody like Leon Golub does it, then the art would fall flat. And so he would be a cartoonist. He would be, somebody who's just putting political slogans on canvas. And there are other people. I mean, there are a number of other people who are doing something similar. I think Leon Golub is a good example of this, because he is kind of the model, or the role model for this new American image of a political artist. I mean, he has gotten recognition for what he does, and he is one of the top at this point.
What about when you try to go into another area here, when you try to sell yourself to galleries?
You mean myself or my art, Pablo?
Your art, and or to the public. And what are some of the main things that you find that in which they try to box you in as a, quote, Latino artist, and not recognize just your art as a piece of work?
Well, very often I think galleries or small museums, which is more or less where I am at this time, galleries will either not want to deal with your work and have quick answers for it, and they don't want to look stupid, and they don't want to look like, if there is ever a potential of them making any money out of your work, they don't want to give you the wrong idea to start with, right? So very easy to say, well, we don't deal with this kind of work, and why don't you go to the Hispanic galleries, so and so. And very often I obviously have seen that before, or I am not interested, or I have exhibited there, or so it's often a very simple solution. And some people who are serious would look at it more closely and will give me a better feedback than just guide me to the simplest road. I don't know whether that answers your question.
Yeah. What about the critics too? In that sense, what do you encounter, and how do you try to fight it? How do you try to fight it also with the galleries? counteract that tendency to say, hey, this is a Hispanic artist, you go to the Hispanic gallery, or we're not interested in that kind of art?
Uh-huh. Well, the only real way to count to fight back this boxing in, which is only helps to a certain point, and then you're stuck. You can't get out of it, and you'll never be really taken seriously. So, in order to fight this, I think the first thing is that you have to be good. I mean, there is no other prerequisite. I mean, you have to be very good, and if you are in the minorities, unquote, then you have to be even better than good. And if you have that confidence, and if you are that good, then you don't take no for an answer, and you spill back a lot of the stuff that they spill on you. Basically, is that a lot of critics that I have come across and a lot of gallery owners that I have come across take simplistic attitudes. Sometimes they look at my work and they say, "Oh, this image is Mexican," or "This image is derived from Mayan work," and they probably have never seen Mayan work because some of these images are not Mayans, or the work is. I have studied the work. I have looked at the pre-Columbian cultures closely, and when I make references to them, I am very cautious of how I'm making references to them. And for somebody who doesn't know, who think they can identify my work simply, they will make silly references, which discredits them as a serious professional, discredits them. So I, in some way, don't feel as upset about this. I just think it's their own ignorance. But I think as a professional, I want to do the best I can. And I want to have the confidence of a talented person. So I want to approach the mainstream with that idea in mind. The galleries will close doors because there are too many artists out there, and I'm not only because of the color of my skin, but simply because there are thousands of artists out there, and they don't have enough room. And so that in that respect, I know that they will close a lot of doors when I walk in, but my feeling is that I am walking in there with excellent work. And if I feel that confidence of my work, whether it's excellent or not, it doesn't matter. I have the feeling of that, I have the confidence of that, then it's all right.
Is there any difference between the difficulties that a Latino artist, an ethnic artist has, and a mainstream artist in developing, in gathering the skills, in working?
Yes, I think that the process is difficult because I think when you're the lower spectrum of the society, it's just harder to get the basic training that you need. For one, I think that it's often not a question of only the training, but the way that you perceive the world. And very often, black or Hispanics have this inferiority complex, which definitely gets them nowhere. And so they have to overcome this first. I mean, they have to feel that they can do the best they can, and there is no barriers because of the color of the skin. And I think once those people in the lower end of the society can overcome that problem, there are a lot more doors open. And I think that you have to open those doors. No door is going to be opened by itself, so you can just walk in. I mean, you have to work for it, and you have to work very hard. I think that the fact that you are viewed as a minority puts you in a disadvantaged category, which you have to overcome by very hard work.
One of the things that people feel has been very instrumental in developing the ethnic artists, black artists, Latino artists, has been the advent of a lot of programs for those artists, like Latino artists, Latino galleries, Latino museums.
Sure.
But doesn't that help, that comes in that form, in a way contradicts itself because it tends to box those artists in those categories?
Yeah, I think that is a very good question, and I think you're right. I think that for the most part, the idea.
Good. Start again.
Uh, well, I think that first of all that you're right. I think that the, the the idea is that if we, do you want me to stop or?
No, no, keep going.
I heard a lot of steps. I don't know if you're hearing them.
Are you hearing anything? It's
I'm
finished?
not hearing it through the mic. I hear it, but I'm not hearing it through the mic.
Okay.
Okay, so all right, we'll forget it. Anyway, I think that for the most part, you're right. The idea is that when the government gives money to the minorities, in some way is going back to this ancient American question of separate but equal. You know, is giving money to somewhat maintain this duality of separate but equal. And I don't believe in it, personally. I don't believe that that is a solution. I think that the role, and where these galleries do it well, is when their role is to try to, yes, show the best art that is coming out of a certain community, but try to get those artists also first-rate mainstream exposure, so they can also be taken seriously in the mainstream. And I think most of these galleries don't do it. And the system has created this. I don't think it's only the fault of the galleries or these Hispanic museums. I think is the system has taken an easy way out because it's comfortable. I think it's a lot harder to control the population as a whole if we view the population as equal in every aspect of its daily living, right? It's a lot easier to control it if here are a group of Orientals, here are a group of Hispanics, here are a group of Black Americans, and we make them fight for the crumbs that the mainstream gives us. I think that there is lots of danger in this, and I think that we have to be very cautious of when there are crumbs and how we will accept them. You know.
How would you criticize Latino museums, galleries that are strictly Latino, in what you just said? It's not all their fault, but some of it you consider it is their fault in trying to in promoting Hispanic artists, they tend to box them into those categories.
Well, I think that some of the galleries have grown fat with this easy money, because it's easy in some way, because the government has given a certain slot for Hispanic artists. And so these galleries know that they can get this money anytime, you know, because there's this unquote need for Hispanic arts. Now, some of those galleries are corrupt, and some of those galleries really abuse their artists. They exploit them, they abuse them, and they take them for granted. And they know that because it's so hard out there to survive, that any Hispanic artist is going to come to them and just consider them gods because they have the power. But they really don't have the power. In reality, they're just playing a very small role in an overall picture. And the artists, I think, the Hispanic artists or the Black artists that are boxed into this situation have to be very, very much aware of this, because the overall game is too big. We're talking about an industry of $1 billion industry. You know, we're not talking about thousands of dollars or an exhibition where you're being exploited and you get nothing out of it. And if you're lucky, maybe you get a review out of it. Well, that doesn't do anything. I mean, that's not talking about the real substance of what is out there.
On another plane, is the Latino artist also at fault in remaining, quotes, within Latino themes? Is there too much of that, such as a lot of the Chicanos stay within those mural, Aztec themes?
Well, once again, I think we have to differentiate between what is, unquote, good art and what is just trendy or a certain easy way of expressing yourself. I think that there is absolutely nothing wrong in going into your roots, whatever they are, and spilling them out. And if that's what you want to do, and you do it very well, there is room for that. I think that the society needs that in one form or another. But don't use that as a gimmick or as a simple way out and repeat what is being done before by maybe better people, because then you're not doing anybody anything, and you're certainly not contributing to the society, and you just redigesting old stuff.
What about the work that an artist has to do today in order to promote himself, to sell himself? It's not just enough to paint. What is it that you have to do?
Well, it's a tricky question, and then recently I just saw an article about Keith Haring, who's one of the big shots in New York right now. I think that there is we're dealing with a much more complex society today as to the society of the turn of the century or before, for the art scene in particular. First of all, nowadays you can't afford to just be painting and hope that someday somebody's going to discover you. That doesn't happen. That just doesn't happen anymore. You could very well end up in your own closet the rest of the time, and the paintings will fall apart or the artwork will fall apart, and nobody will ever see it. There is a lot more at stake. You have to be very good at doing your artwork, whatever that is. And you also have to be a very good businessman, a good representative, a good PR person. And you have to know what is out there, what is available to you, and how you could go about and get it. Because what's at stake is just a lot. It's a lot of money. And the people who make it to the top are these new superstars. It's a very funny thing nowadays, because really it's almost no difference between a Michael Jackson and a Keith Haring these days. They're like rock stars. You know, the country idolized them, and they are making a hell of a lot of money, and they're very shrewd, very clever. They know how to manipulate their audiences. They know how to do the things that are necessary to survive. And if you're going to play the game at that level, you have to know. Or if you want to be taken seriously at that level, you just simply have to know what it is that's available to you, and approach it with a very directed approach.
Has the new influence or the influence of the new wave of Latin American painters, the Boteros and all these guys that are becoming so well known and that are becoming so expensive to buy here in the States, is that having a spillover influence on the work of local American Latino artists?
I don't know what this really means, because it's a strange phenomenon. One is that you've had talented artists that have come out of Latin America as a whole, and they are people that have acquired a certain amount of value through the times, and have been respected in the art community as serious, talented artists. Nowadays, some artists are making it big economically, big in their lifetime, making a lot of money and getting a lot of recognition for the work. And that has to have an effect. I don't know to what extent it has an effect. I think recently I just saw a major retrospective of the work of Mata at the Pompidou in Paris. And I think of Mata and the talent of this man, who is old now, who's been around a very long time, and who is a living art history. And you think of this man and the influence that he's had in 20th century art, and how little of that really is present in the US today, because for some reason, somewhere along the way, he was branded an undesirable person because of his political views. And his work is not overwhelmingly political, if that is one subject that we want to touch. I think Leon Golub is more political than him. But that person, who I consider one of the living talents of Latin American art, that person is not making or is not getting truly the recognition he should be getting all over the world. I think the French appreciate him more than the Americans appreciate him. And he should be having a retrospective at the Museum of Modern Art. And his work should be going for a lot of money, and he's not necessarily doing that. So I would like to say that all these influences of somebody like Botero, who is clearly making it big, is a positive influence. But you also have to remember that there are a lot of very good people that are not getting enough recognition, who have paid their dues. I am young still, and I haven't paid that much of my dues yet. But somebody like Mata has certainly paid his dues, and there's no excuse for it.
Okay, thank you.